Welcome to a short introductory video about version 6 of Time at Work. The most radical enhancement in version 6 is the complete redesign of the PSW interface. You would now see a number of tabs instead of menus down the left-hand side. And on the Today tab, which effectively replaces the home page, you see everything organized that is of immediate use to you. For example, here in the first To-Do panel, you see everything that you need to do on your own behalf, such as timesheets that are overdue or forms that are in progress. With one click, you can open your current timesheet. That is the timesheet based on today's date. In the Approve tab, you see everything that you need to either approve or review. That could include timesheets to authorize, forms to authorize or review, or approvals such as fees to approve or expenses to approve for a given project. In the Reports panel on each tab, you would see reports of various kinds that have been designated as useful to appear on this particular tab. News are no longer opened automatically when you log in, but you see the current latest news items separately in a panel here and other news items there. We've also introduced shortcuts. For example, if I click on Find a Skill, the system will take me straight away to the employee index, where I can specify skills to search for amongst the employees. The Shortcuts panel also shows the 5, at least configured for the moment as 5, most used reports that the system has recorded me using. I can also click on My Team, which will show the employee index again, but list only those employees who are in a particular role relationship to me. In this respect, Simon Singh is the line manager for these employees. Similarly, if I click on My Projects, the system will show me all the projects for which Simon Singh is project manager. The Shortcuts and Reports panels are visible on every tab, but you'll see that, for example, that if I click on the Timesheets tab now, there may be different reports specified as appearing here. The same for Forms. Invoicing. You see that there are specific reports for invoices, fees to approve for invoicing, and a To-Do panel that allows me to create, reprint, or reverse invoices. It also allows me to do ledger modification. Planning will include all the planning profiles that I'm allowed to see. Employees will include the employee index, static data reports, in this case, that I'll show you later, and the option to go directly to reference data maintenance for employees. Projects is similar. Here, we can go to the project portal, or we could look at just new projects, which is a subset of the project portal, or we can directly edit clients' projects and tasks. Of course, the availability of these links depends upon the options available to a particular employee. We have now placed all timesheet and form history on a separate tab. And instead of having separate links for history of submitted or history of authorized timesheets, we have a single link, for example, to all timesheet history, where, of course, you can filter and sort and search to arrive at the timesheet that you might want to look at. The Administration tab includes all reference data maintenance and also other tools, ledger modification, export, data import. There's a new tool called Timesheet Control, which is similar to what used to be called Workflow Control, which enabled you to reassign a form from one authorizer or reviewer to another. Timesheet Control allows you to reassign a timesheet from one authorizer to another. Notice that shortcuts are visible on every tab. A little more about reporting. We've enabled now the possibility of grouping reports together. If I show you in Time at Work Maintenance how this is done, you'll see how useful it can be. We also no longer differentiate between reports of one kind or another. The user doesn't need to know that an individual report is going to be rendered as an inquiry grid or as a Crystal Report template or Microsoft Reporting Services template, or that it's an active schedule profile or a workflow status profile or whatever. But on all of those report types, there is now the option, let's take one of these, to specify two additional things. I can specify, for example, this has to be a PSW report, obviously, that this particular profile is to appear on a particular tab. Those are all the tabs that appeared across the top here. So these reports here are ones where the PSW tab has been specified as invoices here. The groupings that you see here in the reporting tab, those groupings are free-form and they're specified here. So I could just enter a new group called New One. And the next time I log into the PSW and go to the reporting tab, I'd see a new panel containing all reports classified as belonging to the group New One. This applies to active schedules as well. So in the last step, when defining an active schedule, you can also define this schedule as appearing in a particular PSW tab and as grouped in a particular way. So if we go back to the reporting tab, we'll see that if we click, for example, on this one, we'll find that we are opening an active schedule. Incidentally, active schedules no longer pop out into a new browser page unless you click Pop Out here. And if I click a report such as Project Actuals versus Plan, I run this, you'll see that we are invoking a Crystal report. But the user doesn't have to know in advance what kind of report he or she is going to use or how the data are going to be rendered. One other very important thing to understand is that the way in which forms are opened, profiles opened, has now changed. In all cases where you're going to open a profile, or such as a planning profile, or open a form or a timesheet, you will now click on an icon rather than, as before, on the timesheet period. So I click on that icon and the timesheet opens. Cancel that. The same goes for form. For example, if I want to create a form, I would click on the icon to open the particular form type. If I want to open a form that is in progress, I would not now click on the reference number, but rather on the open icon. One other thing to bear in mind is that the options modify password, or my details here renamed employee details, and the log off link are displayed by clicking up here. So those are the graphical changes. A few more things. We've introduced a new kind of inquiry into Time at Work. These are static data inquiries, static data profiles. These enable you to For example, list all employees, irrespective of whether there are transactions in the system. So this one, for example, if we go to employee list here on the employees tab, we'll see that it's simply a list of all employees with specified fields in the grid. These reports can also be rendered through Crystal Reports templates or Microsoft Reporting Services templates. Static data inquiries can be used for employees, the hierarchy of clients, projects, and tasks, and analysis values. But apart from providing a means of listing or viewing or grouping data for reporting purposes, they're also useful for exporting. You can specify that a given static data profile will deliver an Excel spreadsheet or a text file in CSV format. You can also schedule the execution of these static data profiles, and they therefore enable the integration of data such as employees, clients, projects, and tasks with third-party systems. You could schedule the export of all employees and then import them as analysis values into financial systems and so on. Let's turn to invoicing. The way in which the email recipient for an invoice is specified has changed in version 6. We now specify that using roles. So, for example, here on system parameters, I can specify that by default, when I create an invoice to a particular client in respect of one or more projects, I will email the PDF or other format document to whoever fulfills the role of invoice recipient and whoever fulfills the role of project manager. There could be more than one person in that role as well. Invoice recipient is here defined as a client role. Client employees are invoice recipients and they're specified on the client record. So here, on this particular client, say United Airships, on the roles tab, we'll see that Jeff Davis, who's been set up as a client employee, is defined as the invoice recipient. We also specified on system parameters that the project manager might receive a copy of the invoice. We also specified there, I'll show you once more, that the list of invoice recipients can be modified at runtime. You may or may not want to allow this, but here we are allowing it. Now, what does that mean? That means that if I, for example, want to reprint and resend an invoice, I'll click here and run this to look at all the invoices in the system. We might choose, for example, this one. And if I click on email, you'll see that Simon Singh, who is the project manager for this project, is listed, and Susan Jenkins, who is defined as the invoice recipient against this particular client. We must still specify which format, which template we want to use to render the invoice. But because we've allowed runtime modification of the recipients list, I can click on this button here, and I could remove an individual and add another employee. And therefore send to a different group of people. We've also changed the way in which the subject and body for an email is specified. we now have an upwards cascading default mechanism so that if you've specified the invoice email subject on system parameters in the body here and nowhere else, then those values would be taken from here. But if you specify them at a lower level, such as on company, on client, or on project, then those specific strings would be taken from there. So you could set the system up very, very simply so that there's just one email subject here, one email body here. But of course, if you're in a multilingual environment, you might want to have different languages for each company or indeed for each client. We've also added Invoice Reversal to the PSW. If I cancel out of this, you'll see that on the Invoicing tab, we have the option for reversal. Again, I can set up some parameters to select particular invoices that I want to reverse, but now I can click on an invoice and open it and reverse it. And in due course, we will be adding the option for partial reversal and invoice correction. So those are the main changes in version 6 of Time at Work. We found through our own experience with pre-release versions of the software that if you're upgrading, the difficulties are not many. Indeed, people are glad that it looks more modern and that, especially, that reports can be grouped in various ways. It is important, however, to point out that the way in which forms and timesheets and profiles are opened has changed. Very important to point out that all users must now use this icon. So that's version 6. Good luck and give us any feedback that you can. Thank you.